What I'm suggesting, let's get practical about it. We've had a wonderful discussion. I'm very grateful for all the good ideas. But we still have a BMS system that we need to address. We still have an Ayush that we have to deal with. We have a wonderful Gurukul system that we have to institutionalize, make better. We still have a divide between Ayurveda and modern medicine which we need to bridge. These are all laudable objectives which we must work on. I have a suggestion. Let's, as a takeaway from this get-together and meeting, let us volunteer in these 4 areas to set up a small group, 2, 3, 4 people, put together your thoughts, analyze briefly, but make very practical suggestions of what we can do. One, within the system, is how to improve what we already have, and a completely different out-of-the-box solution, which can be as radical as you want it to be. Don't get limited by the constraints. Let's do this kind of practical for each of the areas that Shri Krishna Kumar has indicated. Let me also say, each of you who has an institution, create a program for yourself for young people. The future of this country lies with our youngsters, and I'm very optimistic about what they're capable of doing, provided we can create the facilities for them. So my practical suggestion in 4 areas which we've identified. 1, existing BMS system, what we need to do to change, to modify and to improve their syllabi. Suggestions like whether a baseline a program can be established, and what we need to do so we can take that and run with it within the system. Second, let's take the Gurukul idea and see how we can institutionalize it in more than one area. Create its own very special, unique facility and find how we can promote that. Led by a third area would be how do we introduce the concept of Ayurveda at the school level, both in terms of syllabi within the system and outside the system. One of the projects we're working with in AVP with Shri Krishna Kumar's blessing is to get doctors here to go out to schools and teach and talk to both parents and teachers about basic concepts of Ayurveda. It's a voluntary thing, Lions clubs, Rotary clubs, there are any number of institutions. In your own respective areas, design a program like this, get volunteers to go out. This is a question of getting the message of Ayurveda out. And the last, which is equally important, how do we bridge this gap between here, let's get our allopathic friends as well as our Ayurvedic friends, and some people who are international and who have an interest in Ayurveda, and put them together. Let's get some practical suggestions. Let's not try and reinvent the world at this stage, but let's see how we can incrementally improve it. And then we'll work, we'll get a group together, we'll go to New Delhi, we'll work with MPs, with MLAs, with various other institutions, and try and see how we can address this. The last issue to which there was not enough discussion, but which is of great concern to me, is how do we make Ayurveda available to the ordinary poor man out in the villages. It's a serious, serious requirement. The modern system is not going to do it. Neither the private sector nor the government. This is another area, if there are any thoughts. I would just suggest maybe somebody here can become the nodal point to collect all this, get volunteers to form these groups, and let's start a movement. Let's start a campaign, as Shri Krishna Kumar just said, with his guidance and blessings. And we'll review it a quarter from now, 6 months from now. We'll get somewhere. I'm optimistic. Thank you very much for coming this afternoon. Thank you for your wonderful ideas, and thank you for a new beginning. Because ultimately, we have to be convinced that Ayurveda is our heritage, and we have to take pride in it because it's better than the best in the world. That's the kind of pride we want. I want our young students to stand up and feel proud that they are Ayurvedic practitioners, not that they should hide in the background and say we took Ayurveda because we couldn't get our first choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shri Sospan ji. It was a wonderful discussion we had. I think I have to take back home there are 5 very clear-cut direction, outcome, which has to be pursued further. And I am absolute. There is absolute. It is very, very practical suggestions. No, the taking cue from what Ramesh has been telling, Vinod has been telling, taking whatever is available, how we can be improve it further so that which is contemporary relevant, how we can put into practice better ideas like Gurukula models as a institutional model and as a sample as a pioneering research model. Third one is how to introduce Ayurveda in basic education, especially at school level, and how to bridge the gap between the reductionist system like modern biomedicine and the holistic system like Ayurveda. How to bring the gap between them to minimum. And the most important thing, I think everywhere being discussed and asked, and there are no remedial measures found, is the how Ayurveda can be made available for the underprivileged society. How Ayurveda can be made available for the people who can afford to pay the way the fancy Ayurveda is being made available. So can we go to the cross-sectional society? I think it's very important, these 5 points. I will be happy to persuade further. I think this should make a mark for taking it further. And I thank all of you who have been part of this discussion, who have been witnessing the discussion. I hope it will be taken further. Thank you very much and thanks to all.
May I request Shri Krishna Kumar to nominate somebody from AVP to coordinate? And may I also request that before we formally end this session, if we can have some volunteers who can volunteer for one or the other of the 4 or 5 sections that we have identified, that Dr. Gangadharan has identified. Before we leave, if we leave here, we have some names down. It becomes a good basis to continue and follow up. If we disperse and then try and get together over the internet, it's a little more difficult. So that's my request. If that's broadly acceptable, maybe we can get somebody to note down some names, and maybe one person can become the lead person for each.
I may suggest some of the names that can come forward voluntarily. You can take up this thing, which Shamaji has kindly offered to coordinator from this end. So anyone would like to take up these 5 areas of great importance for Ayurveda sector. One is Mr. Ramesh from Madurai. These 5 areas, which area you would like to concentrate? We have very clear-cut areas defined. Okay, all of them. Anyone else? Any other names you would like to denote?
Please volunteer, no compulsion should be imposed upon you.
Those who feel that
need to work on this, please come forward.
we can give time and PMS. SK. From here, I think Ram Manohar should come because of his representing AVP also. I think we take up this Gauri Shankar. Yes, Gauri Shankar, I have noted. So thank you so much for the name. I think this will be taken further by this team here. Thank you very much for extremely making it fruitful, and Krishna is expected in the other session for that is getting concluded, and we are going to have a wonderful cultural program after this, and we are breaking for tea now. I once again let me thank on behalf of all of you Mr. Saswan Singh for giving us an enlightened idea and bringing us some measurable and quantifiable achievable targets in years to come. Thank you.